Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Definitely Talking podcast. I'm Shanna Groves, also known as Liberating Mom. Today's guest is Brian Ceci. Brian is a hard of hearing cinematographer from Vancouver, Canada. His career is in the visual field and has spanned over 15 years across multiple mediums, including documentaries, theatrical productions, and commercials. He's also a seasoned traveler and has filmed and traveled to 75 countries over 6 continents. Wow. In the last 3 years, Brian's focus has shifted inward to a documentary feature film, which we're going to talk about during this interview. It's called Heard, and it grapples with his own experience of being hard of hearing, and it's a topic that he has avoided since his adolescent years. He's seeking to find a connection within a group of people typically not classified as a group. So Brian aims with the film Heard to mobilize the large array of hard of hearing lings, HOH lings, into a community. We just learned a new term there. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. All right. Well, before we get into this very exciting documentary that you have coming out now, I would like to know more about your journey as being a hard of hearing individual. You mentioned to me in our prior conversations that you didn't really start to embrace your your identity as a hard of hearing person until adolescence. And can you tell me a little bit more about your journey with accepting your hearing loss?
Yeah, for sure. So I can go way back, but to make that a lot shorter, I was diagnosed with a congenital bilateral sensor neural hearing damage in both my ears from birth. Um, and my mom got me hearing aids, and I wore them basically until I was 13 years old. Um, when I got to high school, I got bullied quite badly, and I don't remember the actual ins and outs of it, or the conversations, or the thoughts, but I stopped wearing them from when I was 13 until I was 28. Um, and then it kind of occurred to me when I was 28, I was missing out on things in meetings and things like that, getting into my work. I would also be like traveling in a vehicle or something, and I couldn't keep up with the conversation because of the loud sounds around, or they were facing the road, so I couldn't read their lips, which I rely on heavily. And decided to go get my hearing checked because actually thought at that point it was getting worse, and I was really worried about it. Turns out it wasn't worse at all. I just needed to wear hearing aids, and I had a really great audiologist that just said, just take these, wear them for 6 weeks. If you don't like wearing them, you don't have to. Um, and Yeah, I started wearing them again when I was 28, and I wear them every day since. Um,
Hmm.
and, uh, yeah, the other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up is just that um, it took me 10 years after getting them again to really actually question my identity around them, my thoughts around them, how I perceive the world mostly as a hearing person, and didn't really embrace my deafness. And it was only in the last couple of years making this film that really turned that around for me, where I'm just like really feel comfortable in my own shoes and my own ears again, since all of that happened.
Hmm. Brian, thank you for sharing some of what has to be a very vulnerable experience in growing up with hearing loss, and those teen years are already interesting. And, I'm reminded also that the hearing loss journey, you mentioned why a lot of people don't wear hearing aids. There's a lot of reasons, but that stigma, and especially when we're younger and people make unkind comments about our hearing devices, And it reminds me of a campaign that I'm involved with on my website, lipreadingmom.com. It's called Stop Hearing Loss Bullying. About 12 years ago, a group of 10 of us put together our own mini documentary about our journey with hearing loss acceptance and how a lot of us grew up with that bullying because we couldn't hear, and how we wanted to communicate with other people why that stigma was so harmful and how to embrace who we are and our identity. So it brings me back to your story. Did you have anything in particular that prompted you, besides maybe struggling in hearing situations? Did you have anything that inspired you to to give hearing aids a try again?
There's nothing in particular that gave me inspiration per se, except that I was in the room getting my hearing checked in the box. That's what I call it, being in the box again. Um, and the audiologist just said, "Why don't I just fit these with your hearing so that you can hear the difference?" And I think the sort of, I guess, spark for me was actually just when I walked outside the door of the office that I was in. There's sounds that I actually forgot I could hear.
Mm.
I forgot that in that time, I forgot that you can hear birds chirping. I could hear like the rubber being picked up off of a tire, like when a car goes by, like you can hear the rubber, like because I'm missing all my high pitched sounds
Hmm.
on my audiogram. Um, and I just remember being just like, oh my God, like I can't believe I'm missing all of this. And then it was much later that, of course, I learned about speech sounds, that's and the ps and these sounds that make human speech. And I realized I was missing that too. Um, I think I did a really good job of um, masking myself to sort of fit in and just kind of blend in. But I realized like throughout the film, which we can talk about later, just how much I was actually using that almost to mask this entire identity that I have, just to fit in.
Did you find any time along this journey, finding your sense of community to where you felt like finally I belong somewhere? I don't, you know, neither one of us, because of our hearing loss, we have similar level of hearing loss, it sounds like, that we don't fit in 100% with the hearing community, even though we've been raised in the hearing community, and we don't necessarily identify with the culturally deaf community because we were not raised to learn sign language and be a part of that culture. Do you ever find that just kind of being in the middle as being hard of hearing, that there is something we're always searching for that sense of community? Do you find that in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't really pinpoint any of these things until recently, in the last few years. That space between um, is something that I don't think society really places anywhere. It's also very fragmented too, because you can have way different types of hearing loss, all within that spectrum between hearing and deaf that isn't exactly visible. I mean, the only thing that you can really see is, I guess, someone is wearing hearing aids, and then some people who have quite a profound hearing loss might not have that speech element that I've been, and a lot of other people have been lucky to keep. Um, my understanding of my speech is good. So I don't really know what community looks like. I've never looked like known what it looks like. I haven't had friends that had hearing aids growing up. I was always kind of taken away from class. It was like sort of like a teacher's aid type of person. to work on my speech language. Um, and it was just sort of I didn't like it. I didn't want to be that. I just wanted to be normal. So as far as the community goes, like I guess it's hard to imagine something that you don't know that you have. Um, Now, this film has been really instrumental to that because I felt like the purpose of it is to speak about it out loud, be a little bit open, kind of like in this scenario as well. And hopefully people will get and have an understanding, or just some little thing will click for them. They'll be like, "That's right. That's exactly how I feel." And it took me seeing a film myself to realize that community exists.
Community does exist, but we really have to search for it. And sometimes we have to create it ourselves. Like doing this podcast, I'm constantly seeking out people who identify as hard of hearing, such as myself, or deaf, who can engage in conversations with me about it. And so we're today even building that sense of community with our conversation and explaining our individual experiences with that too. Now, shifting gears, you have a documentary out now, Heard. Tell me how that film came about and tell us a little bit more what we can expect if we have an opportunity to see it.
Yeah, so the film Heard is essentially my story just trying to grapple hearing loss and accept it. And then at the same time, I'm searching for others who also share some semblance of hearing loss or um, feel like they're in that spectrum where no one knows, the sort of no man's land. Um, and through connecting with them, understand that the weight that you carry of hearing loss doesn't need to be carried alone. Um, the film idea came about mostly because I saw a film in Vancouver International Film Festival called Eight Stories About My Hearing Loss, directed by an Argentinian filmmaker named Caro Mato. Um, Caro, her whole family has this congenital hearing loss that is progressive, so it just gets worse and worse and worse over as they age. And so the film is sort of a love letter to her deceased mother about how she's coping with her own hearing loss while interviewing other people in her family, her immediate family, that also have shared the same loss. So with her, in a way, it's interesting because it felt like that community was built in. And so they did have these very candid conversations that of things that at that time I'd never heard anyone say out loud. Um, and so it was very moving to me. She was there, and at the end there's a Q&A, and I raised my hand and I said that was honestly one of the most moving things to me, having hearing loss. And she said to me, "I made this film for you."
Oh,
So, right? I
that's
know.
emotional.
I still tear up thinking about it. I'm in touch with her now. Like we talk often. I sort of told her that I was getting the funding to make my film, because I felt like it's in Spanish, so I hadn't seen anything in English that was similar or had a similar themes, and so I wanted to create something that just felt like authentic to my experience. And that's where Herd was born.
Parramatta. I will need to look up their work and
Yeah,
or maybe you can make the introduction for
I
us.
can. Yeah, for
That would
sure.
be great. But always looking to spotlight people with hearing loss. So thank you for mentioning their film work and their story. Before we get into kind of our last couple of questions, I did want to ask you about all of the travel that you have done in your life. Is that just out of curiosity? Has that been for just for fun, or has it been kind of more business related, or a mix? And tell me about your most exciting travel experience, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, like traveling, it kind of hit me in my early 20s, like really early, that I didn't know much about the world. I've learned about it not through news or through clips or through culture that you see that's given to you, but by firsthand experience. It's been very important to me that I understand
Mhm.
people from all walks of life. And I made a job that allowed me to do that. This job was created with this purpose to travel. And it's been very good to me. I've spent a lot of time in Africa, filming there for various things for NGOs, particularly one called the Obaki Foundation, which I can talk about all day long. They're just a wonderful organization that do all kinds of different projects all over Africa, Mexico, some parts of Europe at times. And just seeing some of the things that you end up seeing in those places, I'll never forget. And it's just become kind of my life. But yeah, some of my favorite ones are, I mean, like I love going to places that are just different. Like South Sudan, I've spent a lot of time in South Sudan. That country is one of the most unique countries I've been to. The people are just so tall and they're very, very warm. At first, it takes a little bit of warmth, but once you get to know them, they're just such wonderful people. I've recently went to Albania to film for a documentary about people who left Afghanistan after the fall of Kabul in 2022
Mhm.
or 2023. And Afghans are like some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Um, yeah, I think for me, it's just like I'm just a very curious person, and the curiosity it seems limitless when you can go all over the world. Um, so yeah, that's why I travel.
I love that. I love that. We could probably speak all day about traveling when we have hearing loss. Hearing announcements in the airport and on the airplane with all of the airplane noise is can be challenging at times, can it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've had a lot of funny circumstances that have come up over the years with that. And you just have to make light of it and laugh at it. I think humor is a huge thing that people with hearing loss, that is actually one of my things for to talk about a bit later, is just humor is just such an important part of it. It's just sometimes it's just absurd. And you just have to run with the absurdity and not take yourself too seriously at times, I find.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So I like to laugh on this podcast, so maybe I'll come up with something fun that we can both laugh about. Or maybe just talking about humor can make us laugh. But I think that with hearing loss, we deal with so much anxiety because we are working harder to hear, and there's that listening fatigue, and also that lack of understanding sometimes and lack of accommodation. So we need to find ways to kind of blow off steam and let go of that anxiety. I think laughing is such a great way to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, Heard, tell us how people can view it or what some of your goals are with the documentary to get it seen by a wide audience.
It's a very grassroots film. We don't have a ton of funding to jump around and do a lot of publicity about it and put it in major mainstream theaters. It's also just very niche. So right now, what I'm doing is trying to seek certain communities that seem prominent in the US and Canada. Prominent meaning to just have a vibrant community where people just want to see this type of content. Um, and I'm trying to reach out through just any contacts that people have about what and wanting to see this filmed, and then getting a theater, renting it out, and I'd hope to travel there too, just to have it just to meet the people that want to receive this. Um, and that's kind of the plan right now. It's very, very grassroots.
And the film itself will be accessible to people who are deaf, hard of hearing. It will be captioned, correct?
Yeah, the film is open captioned. It was designed that way from the very beginning. I like refused to make a film like this and not caption it since I watch everything with captions anyway. Um, in our premiere in Vancouver, we had ASL interpreters who interpreted the screening itself. We also did an open caption Q&A as well. So these are some of the things that I love to keep uh, adding on to rather than just going to a screening on its own. The problem is that those things cost money. So I'm actively looking for sponsorships and people that will donate their time and goodwill to make this happen in a local way. Um, yeah, and then the other thing that's kind of come out that isn't quite there yet is something called Auracast, which you might be aware of,
Yes.
where
Can you, for our podcast viewers and listeners, can you tell us more about Auracast? Because we haven't discussed it in a prior episode.
yeah, Auracast is essentially a wider net version of Bluetooth that people with hearing aids and devices, specific devices at this stage, can listen to public service announcements, announcements at an airport per se, straight into your hearing aids. So the film is we also mixed it in stereo so that we could watch the film with Auracast as well. However, just given the limitations of the tech so far, there's only Starkey, Oticon, and GN. So GN includes Resound,
Mhm.
B-Tone, and Jabra. Those three hearing aids companies only can accept, and a few cochlear implants. I think the
Cochlear
bot.
implants. Okay, that's good because I have one hearing aid and one cochlear implant. So I'd like to be able, I know that both of them are programmed to sync with Bluetooth, and I'm curious if I could also experience Auracast with my devices. But I'll have to talk to you about that offline sometime.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. You have five people featured in the documentary, including yourself, correct? And
That's correct.
how did you find these individuals?
The first one really came just sort of naturally. That was Kelsey Grazier. Kelsey is a contemporary painter in Vancouver. I've had multiple conversations with her in the development of this project just because she's so poetic about how she speaks about hearing loss. Her art actually depicts hearing loss as well. She was instrumental in getting this project to sort of flow. She also connected me with so many people. Like she's sort of like just like a tree of information. Yeah, that's how like mostly how I got started was through Kelsey. She has two cochlear implants. She lost her hearing overnight and woke up the next morning and had no hearing at all. And learned how to sign in the 3 year waiting period that she was waiting to get a cochlear implant. Um,
Hmm.
in Canada, the government pays for cochlear implants, deeming a proper test. Um, but the waiting period is long. So she was completely deaf, didn't know how to sign, and now she can sign. She calls herself capital D deaf, and she also has CIs.
Wow. Ugh. First of all, I'm envious that in Canada you do have access to this medical care that we have to pay a premium for in the United States. Um, but let's be humorous about all of this. I'm fascinated with the fact that you are looking for people to help support you, but they'll be like, "Oh no, how do I see this film? How do I see this?" Who or where would they reach out to get more information, to show their support, maybe even offer to help you find a place to screen in their state or their community?
Yeah, honestly, you can just send me an email. So it's Brian, Brian, at BrianCeci.com. That's it. Just send me an email and we can get connected. I mean, like essentially, I'm looking for people with built-in communities. That's what I'm looking for. So if that's you, reach out.
Okay, I will. I will. And there's organizations, I know in the United States, the Hearing Loss Association of America. In Canada, you have the Hearing Loss Association. There's other associations, but I will be thinking about that. And if any of our podcast listeners and viewers have some ideas for Brian, please reach out to him at his email, which I will also post in the details of this podcast too. Last question. Okay, so this is our big three final question for season two of the Definitely Talking podcast. It's kind of our theme is a big three question. And the reason why I picked the number three is because for those who are watching on YouTube, behind me, you can see a photograph of three young children. Those are my three adorable children, taken very long ago because they're all grown up now. And so I thought the number three is my special number, and that's one of the last questions I'm going to ask you, Brian, and that is, what three lessons have you learned from your experience as a hard of hearing individual?
I mean, I've learned many lessons. It's hard to categorize it down to three, but I guess a few of them are one is uh, I think you gain the ability to have nuance. And I think nuance is something that I really think is important, not only in just like how you think, but how you perceive the world. Like nothing out there is black and white. There's gray everywhere.
Mhm.
So to carry yourself with a bit of nuance, carry your conversations, to carry other people's conversations and how they perceive you with nuance, I think is really important. The second is, I think, maybe very obvious people, but um, patience, just to have a bit of patience. And not only with other people that you're interacting with, because they don't understand the way that you perceive things. They just won't. Um, and so having some patience with them, but also some patience with yourself as you learn how to speak properly or get used to the very sharp sound that hearing aids can have if you have like a later in life hearing loss. Um, Number three is humor. We talked a little bit about this. I just think there's times where you can just kind of laugh it off. There's just some funny things that people say, jokes like, like I don't like to be like. I think when you have hearing aids, you end up being a little bit more serious because you are missing out on things. You really have to listen and use a lot of your energy to do that, and by default, just makes you kind of more a serious person. But it doesn't need to be serious all the time. Like you can have fun with it. You can also just take your hearing aids out and walk away. Like, you have that deaf gain, there's things that you gain from hearing loss that other people don't get. Like, um, I'll just list a quick example. I was camping in Namibia, which is southwest Africa, deep southwest, almost near South Africa. And when we were going to sleep, there's hundreds and hundreds of high-pitched frogs going at once, making this very high-pitched sound. Everyone that I was camping with didn't sleep a wink. I took these right out, didn't hear them whatsoever. That's a deaf gain. So having a bit of humor is, I think, important as well. So yeah, those are just three things. There's like hundreds more, but those stand out to me.
So true. I can tell you stories of when my children were younger and would scream or cry or throw a fit. And all I would have to do, I wouldn't even have to take my hearing devices out. I would just leave the room because I could only hear like within 6 to 10 feet of where the sound is coming from. So you just leave the room and it's peaceful.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
totally get it. I totally get that. That what I call deaf silence, which can be a beautiful thing, especially when you're trying to rest.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's been hard. I have tinnitus now. That came up recently in the last 6 months. I never had it, but so
Mm.
I was living in bliss before. I didn't even know it, and now it's becoming trickier.
I can give you lots of pointers. I've lived with tinnitus for 25 years this month.
Okay. Yeah.
It started right after I delivered in the labor and delivery room of my oldest son. So I developed it right after that. And I had some, I guess, a situation happen there. But yeah, it's a process. And that sound and that ringing in the ears can fluctuate the pitch and the volume. So I think it's so important to just breathe and try to stay as calm as possible because stress, from my experience, makes it worse.
Yeah. Sure.
So keep laughing, keep laughing. That's it. And the ear ringing hopefully will not be as loud as loud.
Mhm.
But no, you have my empathy with that. It is a process of living with that. For those who are tuned in also, like I said, there's many different types of hearing loss. People who may have typical hearing, but they do have ringing in their ears. That is another form, actually, of a hearing loss because it is masking the hearing that you would normally receive if you didn't have that noise coming from in your ears. And so I think we have to realize that there are probably a lot more people in this hearing loss community that don't even realize they are living with that.
For sure.
Yes. All right. Well, Brian, it's been a great pleasure to chat with you again, and I'm very excited about your documentary. People, please, please, please reach out to Brian. Find him on, you're on LinkedIn. Is there any other social media that we can find
Yeah.
you?
I'm on Instagram as well. Just my name on Instagram. Brian Ceci.
Okay.
Um, and
Brian is Brian and Cece is Ceci.
that's right.
Just for those who are reading closed captions with this podcast, I wanted to spell it correctly. All right, Brian. Thanks again. And I really wish you great success with your new documentary.
Thanks, Shanna. Appreciate that.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of Definitely Talking. Until we speak again, we hope you take care and just remember to enjoy the ride because life is too short and we do need to laugh every once in a while in this life. So, thanks again for bringing some light and humor to our conversation, Brian.
No problem.
All right. Take care. Huh? Nothing happened with my